Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys.
So, how would you crowdfund and raise $1 million? Let's go. Hey, what's up, everybody? Zen here with ClosedWon. Welcome to the ClosedWon Sales Show. This is a channel where we cover basic sales tips and interview amazing founders. They are putting in the work day in and day out to build successful businesses. Every week, we curate videos that cover actionable sales steps you can apply to close more deals. In the next 3 weeks, we have David Smooke, who will share his tips on how he raised $1 million crowdfunding. So sit back, relax, and open your mind. Let's get ready to learn a path made for bosses. But real quick, let's say hello to our beautiful audience. Hello, Charlize. Hello, Sean. Hey, Ashley. Hey, if you're new here, don't forget to like and subscribe. And feel free to ask us any questions. All right, let's get started with the sales tip of the week. Let's go. Our first tip is by Bryn Tillman. Bryn, tell us, what is the first thing you need to do when you create a LinkedIn profile?
Well, I think the first thing you have to do is define why you're there. So are you there for brand recognition? Are you there for prospecting, for scheduling calls? Like, define why we're here and define sort of your KPIs around that. What are we going to measure for success? Because we want to make sure, if we're going to start from scratch, that we're doing it with a goal in mind. And I think that that really helps. The next thing I think I would do is buyer map. Start to identify, even before you start building a profile, who am I talking to, what I offer them, and why they would care, right? So really start talking about who those folks are. So I would map the buyers, the who, right? So we could go as high level or as deep as we want with buyer mapping, because it can be a whole project.
Yeah, that's right. So first, identify why you are building a profile. What is your goal? Define that. So for me, I have my LinkedIn profile to connect with my professional network. At first, I had I used it as a CV, as a resume, but eventually it evolved into kind of a personal branding type of profile where I connect with localization experts. So you'll see that's kind of the theme on my profile if you check it out. And then if you scroll down a little bit, you'll see that I also connect with entrepreneurs who are trying to learn sales strategies. And that is what my profile is about. I want to connect with both localization experts as well as connect with entrepreneurs and founders who want to close more deals. So try it out. Check it out. Let's listen to our next tip. Now, here's Logan Lyles sharing his 3 tips on LinkedIn strategies now that you have a profile. Try his tips out. Let's listen in.
I can remember a time when I was super pumped to see over 200 views of a post I put out on LinkedIn. Just the other day, I saw over 30,000 views of a single post and regularly see tens of thousands of views per post on LinkedIn. because I'm super amazing or special. No, I've followed some simple strategies that I want to share with you today for finding sales success on LinkedIn. My name's Logan Lyles. I'm Director of Partnerships at Sweetfish Media, and I want to share with you these strategies that have helped me go from a few hundred connections on LinkedIn to over 6,000 followers today, about 18 months later.
Amazing.
All right, let's jump into the tips. Number one, stop simply sharing third-party content in your LinkedIn feed. If you're just sharing
Guilty.
third-party links from Inc. and Entrepreneur in your feed, one, you're limiting your reach based on LinkedIn's algorithm. Number two, and more importantly, people are scrolling right past those as they look for great content that they can learn from on LinkedIn without having to open another app. Just give the people what they want and give LinkedIn what it's looking for as well. Number two is a little bit more involved. Once you start sharing your own original content, you've got to mix it up and you've got to stay consistent. Let's talk about mixing it up. I saw my content reach explode when I started sharing text-only posts that maxed out the 1,300 character limit that LinkedIn gives you for a status update. But if that's all you're ever doing, you'll start to blend in and the content you share will become bland and it will lack variety. So here's a quick story. I started sharing once a week 2 or 3 sentence posts that were a big difference from the typical 1,300, 300 to 400 word posts I had been doing. And I saw those reach the highest heights I've seen of any post visibility on LinkedIn yet. So here's the lesson. You've got to mix it up. Sometimes you do a video. Captions are definitely your friend here, and apps like Headliner can help you make this more efficient. Also, don't always stick to the same format for text posts. Do a list post. Drop a short question like I mentioned. The one that I mentioned was actually, hey, if you join a video conference call and the other person doesn't have their video on, what do you do? Ask them if their webcam is broken? Question mark. And that was the post that saw the most visibility of any post I've ever done on LinkedIn. Quite surprising to me. If you're going to stay consistent and mix it up, as I mentioned, both are important. You've got to keep a full backlog of content ready to share. Here's my way of going about that. Keep your notes or voice memo app handy. Put them on the home screen of your phone so that you can capture the start of an idea when it hits you. This way, you don't sit down at 8 in the morning trying to come up with a new post every day on LinkedIn. All right, number 3, leverage engagement groups. If you're not familiar with this idea, it's as simple as setting up a group text on your phone, but a LinkedIn version. There's an article from Josh Steinley that calls them engagement pods that breaks down what these are and how you can leverage them, but a little bit more here. Once you have this group message set up on LinkedIn, have everyone in the group drop the link to their posts in the thread whenever they have a new one go live. This will make it easy for a close group of 5 to 25 people to leave early likes and especially comments, which LinkedIn's algorithm loves. Take it a step further and use this tactic of engagement groups, not just to boost your own content, but to engage and build relationships with prospects. Reach out to at least 4 or 5 people in your target market, or maybe a few current customers mixed in. People who are actively sharing content on LinkedIn. Explain the value of an engagement group for their content reach, basically what I just told you. And you'll see 3 specific benefits. Number 1, you become the enabler that helps them succeed on LinkedIn. Number 2, you facilitate connections between prospects and their peers. That is always a win for you as a salesperson. Number 3, you make it easy for you to engage with their content and build relationships with potential buyers. Pro tip, leave thoughtful comments like some examples that James Carberry, our founder at Sweetfish, and I shared in an episode we'll link in the show notes here of B2B growth. All right, those are my 3 tips. Stop sharing third-party content, mix it up, and stay consistent. And number 3, leverage engagement groups. If you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, I'm pretty easy to find. Logan Lyles, LoganLyles, or shoot me an email, logan@sweetfishmedia.com.
Yeah, I might just shoot you an email. I learned a lot in such a short video, 4 minutes. Wow. So I am guilty of just resharing posts. Well, I'm gonna try his trick with the engagement groups. Actually, I have a few friends, and we do tend to just like each other's posts, but we don't actually have a strategy on how to build community and how to build engagement with each post. This is brilliant, absolutely game changer. I am going to apply those tips and then talk about it in my next week's video, so you guys can hold me accountable as well. So now let's go on to our final tip. Here we go. Now we have Priyanka Chopra. Priyanka, tell us about success and what we have to do in order to attain such great heights after we've built our LinkedIn profiles and we have great strategies with our engagement groups and such. Take it away.
Success is not success is not a destination. People always think that, oh my God, this person's so successful because they've had a successful movie or a successful show. But success is a journey. You have to consistently always be successful. That's when you're really successful, because otherwise you'll be remembered for your last failure. And I've had a few, but I just have to compensate for my failure by just getting up and running. The more time you take to sort of mourn it, you're wasting that much more time in being successful. So you just have to, perk up, pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and just say, all right, what can I do? There's always a solution. You can't expect, people always get mistaken that just because this year has been what it has been, it's been because I consistently worked hard for about 10 years. So now I know my job enough to be able to be appreciated for it. But if I hadn't had the last 10 years, I would never have had this year or the year before that. So success is not a destination or power is not like, okay, today you're powerful. You have to consistently be powerful and consistently be successful. And that is a journey.
Exactly. That is so important, to be consistent. It's not an overnight journey. My next guest, David Smooke, is going to show us in the last 10 years or so that I've known him, he has and managed to crowdfund and build his company. He actually raised $1 million through crowdfunding, but let's get started on that episode. Let's go. He is the founder and CEO of Hackernoon, which powers 25 million plus minutes of reading per month. Before Hackernoon, he started a marketing agency called ArtMap, and soon he married his lovely wife and COO, Linh Dao Smooke. Together, they both ran a wildly successful crowdfunding campaign, which closed $1 million. Today, David leads 7 full-time software developers, editors, and sales reps. He serves 10,000 plus published writers and 4 million plus readers every single month. But every morning, he begins his day reviewing the best Hackernoon story submissions from all around the internet. Ladies and gentlemen, in the next 2 weeks, we will learn how to crowdfund from the man himself and learn how to raise $1 million. Please help me welcome David Smooke. All right, welcome, David. How have you been?
Hey, Zen. Pretty good. Pretty good. I'm in Colorado, just hanging out.
Yeah, when was the last time we saw each other?
Jeez. Well, I've been out here 4.5 years now, so it's kind of a while. I haven't been in San Francisco, and then I went back to San Francisco a couple times, but it's mostly work related, and and then no one traveled obviously for the longest time. Where are you right now?
I'm in Vegas, so I moved,
Cool.
made the exodus just like you about 3 years ago, right after you. I think I followed you.
It's a good move. I mean, San Francisco's nice, but not forever.
Right. I remember I went to see one of your offices back in 2015 when you were starting Hackernoon, and I believe you were living out of the same office from what I remember.
Not quite. That was it was one room building, one room office in the flood building, Market and Powell, and I did sleep there sometimes, but I did have an apartment.
Gosh, how much was that office?
I want to say I think it was $1,100 a month. One room, had a view. I was on the 6th floor. I think I still have the Twitter handle Flood Building that I reserved when I moved in. No one had got it yet. Named out. I think it's James Flood is who the building's named after.
James Flood.
Yeah, James Flood. I think.
It's a good name.
Don't quote me on
Memorable.
that. I should have a fact checker for everything I say.
Oh, good. Good for you. All right, so let's get started. This episode, we're going to learn how to crowdfund. You launched a very successful campaign on Start Engine and raised over $1 million. But before we get there, I want to start from the very beginning. Who is David Smooke? Where were you born? Tell us who you were from childhood to teen, college, all the way to smart recruiters. Take it away.
I grew up in Pennsylvania. Good at math. People thought I couldn't really speak much for a long time. My older sister kind of spoke for me a lot growing up. Studied.
I don't see that at all.
Right.
Okay.
Economics. Oh yeah, now I talk more. People think I'm good with words sometimes. For a while, I just didn't use words. I thought numbers were pretty much better. Studied economics, creative writing in school. Was a newspaper reporter a little bit. I guess as a kid, I like sports. I like basketball, skiing. I like to go fast. Like to see the ball go in the hoop. I like to win, which is pretty fun. It's more fun when you win. That's nice.
Hey, I didn't know you played basketball. We should have played basketball when we were hanging out.
I've been playing about once a week out here. So if you make it out here, I know a couple games. I have a morning game, which is great. I'm trying to get a second morning game because the older I get, the later the day gets. Like 6 o'clock. And then I was in the men's rec league. I was playing at like 9. And I was like, this is not going to work. 9 p.m. I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
I can't last that long to the end of the day and still feel like fast.
No, I feel you.
And the internet, reading, writing kind of took over late teens, 20s, and the internet changed how we all read and write, and the books mattered less, and we moved it all online. So I'm kind of a part of that little trend, and figuring out how new businesses emerge is once the reading behavior changes, the way you publish changes, and then the way people write changes. So it's all pretty connected. And I still read physical books. How about you? Are you still reading physical books at all?
I do. Yeah, I just got this book right here. Literally, I was just reading it before. It's called The Leading Sales Development. It was just brand new by one of my friends in the modern sales pros world. So I do read books. It's mostly sales help books. Not so much novels. In
The
college.
last time I read was a novel. I read the new Jim Carrey novel. It was pretty fun.
Really?
Yeah, it's just what if Jim Carrey had a dream is basically what it's about. And Nicolas Cage ends up being a real star. He has a big role in the book, in the novel.
Really? I love Jim Carrey.
Me
Nicolas
too.
Cage, he's cool. I like him from the Face Off movie.
That was a good one.
So
Wait,
tell us
Face
about your
Off,
childhood.
You mean The Mask?
Yeah. Oh, The Mask.
Yeah, Jim Carrey was in my childhood, definitely. Those were prime, what is it, age, I don't know, 10 to 16.
So then let's move on to, so you were a journalist right after, was that one of your first jobs? How did you get into journalism from playing basketball?
In school, I studied economics, creative writing, and I didn't really plan too much for what to do next after school. So I ended up moving into my parents' basement, and the newspaper had actually been my high school job at the newspaper. So my first high school job was the mail room in the newspaper. So basically the paper prints from somewhere between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. You finish printing it. and you move stacks of newspaper from the printing press to all the shipping trucks, and just move them outside. So that was like my first job at the paper. Then after college, I had a writing degree, so I was like the entry-level reporter. Basically, I got the stories that nobody wanted. So it's
Right.
like
The
show up.
obituary.
Yeah, obituaries. Definitely a lot of obituaries, which like that can be pretty stressful because if there's a mistake in an obituary, you're dealing with the bereaved and their credit card payments, and it's like.
Has that ever happened?
Those are some uncomfortable conversations, especially they're all bereaved. They send in their own typos in the thing, and you don't fix their typos, and then it's like, oh, they're mad because there's a typo in it, and they should be. It is the obituary of like their loved one.
Of course.
Like the one that's dealing with you on the phone, they're the one that's like having to deal with all this grunt work around the death because that's whoever that is with the person. You're not going to like be fighting for the details of obituaries for people you don't like. It's someone you love.
Right. Well, details are important in
Yes.
journalism in general. So, okay, so let's move from journalism to was Smart Recruiters your first tech job? Like, how did you make that journey from press?
In a Forerunner. So I drove from Pennsylvania to San Francisco.
Yeah.
And then I had saved up like about 6 months worth of expenses. So I figured like I could find, and I had a friend I was going to live with. So I had like, all right, I kind of had a little budget and a little runway. And then I was applying to just jobs on the internet. I mean, I think I actually found Smart Recruiters on LinkedIn and
Not Craigslist?
No, it was LinkedIn. I wrote him a really short message, just what I thought the business was cool, what I could do. Then I ended up I started as an unpaid intern there, but I ended up, staying 4 years. And actually, I mean, I sold my stock in the company in one of their recent rounds, and that was the down payment for my house. So it was a pretty good, yeah, I mean, I felt a little underpaid at the time, but it's nice that equity could work and you can sell it and, get a real thing. So, I mean, it was a really cool job. The person that started that company, Jerome Turnick, he's just a quality entrepreneur and made multiple internet businesses. So it's cool to see someone a little older kind of say, hey, how can I capitalize on this trend as it moves digital? Because he's, 10, 15 years older than me, whatever. So he's seen the internet like when it was nothing, and like when the internet was nothing in my life,
90s.
I was like a 6-year-old who didn't care. The internet didn't matter in the sense of like, oh, my daughter can take photos and I can't. Like I couldn't take like unlimited photos like that. The smartphone stuff is cool, but there's just a lot of ways. The more I think the businesses go online, it's like I'm hopeful that that could be more small businesses and startup emerging. The internet's still very young and it's still very consolidating. And as you get bigger, the move is to get bought and get acquired and absorb into one of the Chipotle Amazon companies. But I'm hopeful that more small business could happen. I mean, this pandemic's kind of changing everything, and all these brick and mortar small businesses that are struggling. It's like I have enjoyed seeing the restaurants become takeout focused, or like seeing multiple restaurants run out of one like kill the seating area and have 2 kitchens and produce twice as much food. So I think there are some like things that aren't all bad for small businesses, and maybe the internet can be like a small part of making businesses a little better and bigger.
Certainly. For the next generation, actually, Dre's brother's son, he streams on Twitch. And I guess I just saw a post. He was making like $100, $200 a day just gaming. I'm like, oh my God, this generation
awesome.
is, right? $100 to $200 a day. God, I had to sell newspaper when I was at that age to make just $50 to buy my Air Jordans. God. So this transition is awesome.
How's your shoe collection these days?
I don't go out at all, so I don't even use shoes. I have my socks. Sock life. So check this out. All right. We have the beginning of this this crowdfunding wouldn't happen if it wasn't for Medium. But before that, you built Hackernoon. Before you built Hackernoon, I remember you asking me, be a publisher. This is back in 2015, before you actually founded Hackernoon. I remember this distinctly. I'm like, oh my God, you really blew this up. So I have so much admiration for you. Walk me through that process, the beginning of Hackernoon.
So when I left Smart Recruiters, I really didn't know what I was going to do. I traveled some around the world. I kind of took a little time off. But I kind of reached the conclusion that what I wanted was a business that kept making money while I slept. So it kind of started of like, okay, what could I make? And in the beginning, people really just wanted to hire me to work for them. So it started more of like, hey, I'll write your story, I'll build your website, I'll just figure out a traffic strategy, I'll help you get customers, I'll build out your messaging, your identity and stuff like that. And we worked together on that. And that was like, how do I get that revenue in that it's enough to pay the bills, and then whatever's above the bills just invested in my own sites and projects. And so I started like, I don't know, probably 40, 50 sites in that period of just random ideas, random domain, what's the simplest way to get it live, custom domains on like different technologies and softwares of like, I'll just put it up there. I think you can find like davidwalks.com on the internet. There's some sites like just kind of sitting around there. But Hackernoon is the one that like the community organically grew. It was kind of the right flywheel of having some editing and distribution for your stories, and then building community atop your stories. So it just, it was the one that kind of hit. But I mean, I think I worked on it for probably like, I don't know, 13, 14 months before I had our first paying customer. And then when we had our first paying customer, it was like, get to where we built a package that people liked. And then eventually, after like 4 or 5 customers, is enough that my wife could join me full time. And then at that point, we have a revenue business with 2 people working, basically me editing and her selling, and then her doing really everything else in between. Like my brain's all over the place, and she like helps me organize my brain.
Really?
Yeah. That's a good balance of skills. I'm much more like expand, explore,
free flow.
More like extract, develop, and plan. But I mean, it had a good thing in the tech industry. Was just a natural. I mean, for the model I was doing, where like I was exchanging no money with the writers, it was just editing and distribution. You own the content, you license it to us. I mean, that model fits much more with people who care about growing community online, who care about open source projects, who care about, startup development. Like that industry just kind of hit. It's a very like, and you see it in San Francisco of like people helping each other. Like there is like a thing of those young startup companies, or even if they have common shareholders or they have common interest in some way, but even when they don't, people just are pretty excited about startups in San Francisco. It's like almost like, it's like I don't know exactly what it would be in New York, but a startup isn't as cool in New York City as it is in San Francisco. So right. I think there's
like,
some
like
of that,
Broadway in New York. Tech is in San Francisco.
But I don't know. I mean, these things just kind of build up. It has to be enough revenue to keep paying you, and then you keep working on it. I mean, the transition from marketing clients to Hackernoon being my sole source of income was probably, over a year, because it was like I'd say, because I think I still kept clients till mid 2017. I kept a couple of clients that I was working for, and it just took off pressure. It's like you don't have to. If it makes you believe the thing is sustainable, like that it does. Your work that you put in, it makes more revenue than the time and effort, and it's enough that it's like comparable to the opportunity cost of working for somebody else, which is not what I want to do.
Exactly. What happened? What was the aha moment or the event that took place that made you decide, okay, I am going to crowdfund and essentially move away from Medium, because you had to build your own publishing company?
So I mean, we had kind of the editorial and the customer base, and we had the readership. So Medium wanted to change directions of like what they offer, and instead of letting anyone use their content management system and build a site, they want people to publish stories on medium.com and drive traffic, everything to run through medium.com. So they kind of made a pivot in their strategy to say, like, we're a technology company that's all over the internet to we're a technology company that runs the site medium.com. So that kind of put me in a spot using a piece of their technology. So we talked to, basically at that point, they offered to buy us. We shopped the company around. We tried to see different offers and we went under NDA with a couple companies, but ultimately, like, it was just more interesting to make the game bigger. And so we decided we wanted to take on some money to hire software developers and move from being just a publishing company to also a software company. And then we have this strategic advantage. The software powers the experience we actually want. Like, we were forcing a lot of behaviors within softwares that weren't optimized for it. And then you go through, like, how many times do I have to run through this stupid workflow to realize this isn't the way to edit a story? So I wanted to really bet on the competitive advantage that if we keep building the software for our specific use case, our business is going to be worth more, and we're going to own software in addition to having all these eyeballs. So that was kind of like the direction I wanted to take it. And I mean, we talked to a bunch of venture capitalists, and most of them just like, they're like, dude, you don't make software. Why am I investing in you to make a software company? Like, at the best, I'm like a mediocre product manager with some basic Figma skills, and I can read documentation, slightly look at code, but I'm not writing any of it, so most of their suggestions were pretty reasonable. Like, that's so, and I just kind of, I like the idea that I was bootstrapped and revenue based, and I knew to make this transition, it was going to cost me more money than I had. So you also start talking to venture capitalists and you learn more about the terms, and it's just like, they're very favorable to the investor. Yep. Like, from my perspective, I had already put in years on this project. It already had traction. And the idea like, I thought that was basically being undervalued by them. So we ended up looking at it as like, how do we set our own terms? And then really the Start Engine came about from Hackernoon. He was contributing to Hackernoon. He has like 20, 30 stories published on our site. So I had been reading him, editing him, Howard Marks, the CEO there. So I just started talking to them, and we decided to do an equity crowdfunding campaign, and it was able to keep our company entirely common stock. And it was, the core traffic driver of the campaign was just the site, putting the link atop the site to say, buy shares in this site, and you can, buy equity in Hackernoon.
In your site.
Yeah. It's kind of
not Start Engine site. It was actually Hackernoon site that was delivering this traffic to that crowdfunding.
Yeah, we just put it atop hackernoon.com, and that was like 85 to 90% of the traffic that made it to the Start Engine page. And so that was, at the same time I was doing a sales campaign. I was looking through who are our most powerful readers. Where all the venture capitalists that published on Hackernoon probably heard from me at some point of like, hey, go check out this campaign. And then actually one of the breakthroughs was right as this was happening, Gary Tan from Initialized Capital followed us on Twitter, and he ended up investing in the equity crowdfunding. And that was a strong kind of social signal that like, this is something that could be for a big or a small investor, instead of just small or big, you can participate in this. So it was a lot of work, but it was a cool experience. And I like having a lot of shareholders, and there's a lot of people that, care about what we do, and hopefully, as we grow, they'll reap the benefits of that.
Yeah. So Gary Tan is one of the actually biggest VCs. If he jumps, a lot of them will follow. So that's an interesting story in itself. How are you able to get Gary Tan to actually invest in your Start Engine crowdfunding?
So he followed us on Twitter. So I just started talking to him, direct messages, and then met him in San Francisco a couple times, I think twice. And initially he passed, and then it's like, as he learned a little more, he decided to participate. So, and I talked.
Wait. Let's dig into that real quick. So he passed. There was an objection that he had.
No, it wasn't. I wouldn't say it was a pass. It was more like, how these soft no's are. It's more like, it was more like, hey, I'm explaining him my options and my strategy and kind of going through what I'm going to do. And it was like, as opposed to like, hey, I'm just going to invest the $1 million or whatever the crowdfunding people were going to do. He just kind of waited for the crowdfunding to develop and did it through that. So it was more like it was just 2 meetings, I guess, saying
Demand.
Yeah, it's a little off to say like outright pass. It's not like you said no and I knocked on his door again. And it's more these
You're
people have
talking to
money
a
that-
salesperson, so
you know,
I need to know how
yeah,
to
yeah. It's more like you just want to keep the door open for the next meeting. In sales, it's like sales is a little. You want to get them to sign, obviously, but
That's a VC round right there.
yeah. I
So,
don't know.
okay. So he waited until you got demand. So let's talk about this demand. This demand is community building. How did you build the community so quickly on Hackernoon itself? Like, did you do a bunch of outbound to get all the publishers, all the authors to come onto Hackernoon and build their own profiles? Like, what did that process look like? How did you get your
We had a
fans?
number. So it was, Jay Zalowitz was working with me at the time on the project, and we had a number of, and he's an engineer at Sonder now, and there's just a number of, we were identifying what content was trending, around the internet and trying to figure out to say, hey, you can also bring it here and get more readers. So, we were asking a lot of people, but the absolute best thing for growing a publication in general, and this one specifically, is a top story. You show people what kind of content is here, and then people try and reach that level. And there's just a natural gaming and a cool thing about I just read this long story. It's amazing. I have another version of a story like that. And
Isn't that piggybacking off another trending story?
A little bit. I mean, people, whenever they're thinking about, how to tell the story about their startup or what's cool about their technology, they're all reading each other. If you're right now in the NFT space, you're kind of reading the same people that are building different NFT products and solutions. So it's that kind of one up, how the internet always people want to one up each other. Right. It's a little dark, but it's happening, pretty much everywhere. I don't think it's so bad. I mean, competition is generally good.
Yeah, kind of like your talk on TED Talk. It was the horizontal storytelling. So before it was more long form, where we have the press telling us, all these stories, and we can't really engage back. But now we have all these trickle conversations. Everyone can become a storyteller and a part of the story. And so I really like that TED Talk that you shared.
Yeah, our business plugged into it a bit because we're always reviewing and rewriting headlines. And as people read shorter things, the headline itself becomes more and more important. And, you see it in the fake news debate of if it's improper, it can imply something without outright being wrong, but it's still the headline is clearly making an opinion and it's saying what you should learn from the story versus what the story is. So that's, writing a good headline is just really important in publishing today.
Okay, I'm going to do something different. Audit this headline right here. How to crowdfund and raise $1 million? How would you change that so it's a lot more of a stronger headline?
How to raise $1 million from your readers. You can call them readers instead of who's crowdfunding.
Yeah.
You think about the people involved. That's where it was good for us. I mean, they were all readers. The people, no one was buying shares without seeing Hackernoon. I mean, this has come up more that we're hiring more. I've learned the best candidates are the people that already value Hackernoon, the people that are already on the site, reading, writing, already understand the value of it. So we stopped all of the traffic to the careers was basically whenever we want more candidates, we put it atop the site in the top navigation and more candidates flow in. And then whenever the jobs start to full, we take the link out of the top nav. And then it's just, we're kind of playing into the same thing of how do we just, the people that already believe in us, how do we create better relationships with them? And how do we do more for each other? It's kind of I like inbound marketing. I like talking to people who want to talk to me. I like those things. So I don't know. It's for my shareholders and my, contractors and employees. It's it's everywhere I found in my business. If they just already believe in the thing, everything kind of goes smoother because then they're joining something they already believe in, and they see how they make it better. And so that's a really good feeling to have.
This relationship with your readers, I'm curious, in order to raise $1 million from your readers, what did your readers get in return?
So you can go to startengine.com/hackernoon to see like all the exact terms. And there's like, we had to go through about $30,000 worth of third-party reviews from legal and accounting.
Oh.
So there's like details in there about like exact share price, exact spend, all that. But the core of it is around, I think it was around like 12 or 13% of the company for 100 for the whole round. 12 to somewhere between 12 to 13% of the company, and then it was priced at the time at $8.20 a share. So our company is entirely common stock. So basically, they were buying common stock, and they hold those shares. And so we remain common stock to this day. The shares I hold are the exact same shares that all the crowdfunding hold. So it was a good experience for sure.
Yeah, it's kind of like an employee pool.
A little bit, but
It's
they're
around
actually
that.
holding it. So most employee stock options, they have the right to buy at certain prices, is how most Silicon Valley companies do. But in this case, they're actually buying the shares of common stock of Hackernoon, which is like, I mean, this is all possible from the 2015 Jobs Act, where they are basically private companies are allowed to sell shares to anyone and not just accredited investors. Because previously, you basically had to prove you had a lot of money in order to get into any private company.
Right, like 200,000, I think, net, or $1 million net worth.
Yeah, I mean, it's a small portion of the population. So, and there's some good reason with that, of like startups are high risk ventures. Like they can go up, they can go down, and but now look at it, you can buy. We could take a screenshot of this and issue an NFT and put it for sale. Financial
I have to
institutions
look
are
into this. Yeah, my last guest was also talking about NFTs, and he said this is the new crypto. Those who join in now, they're gonna reap the rewards of it in the future. We'll see. I don't know. It's like Dogecoin, right? The irony. So, closers, I hope you enjoyed learning more about David and his journey to becoming a successful entrepreneur. Imagine being good at math, where people would think you can't speak much, and then growing up, and now people think you're really good with using your words. This is David's beginning. He even became a journalist. From there, he started a marketing agency that transformed into a business, Hackernoon. And then he closed $1 million of crowdfunding from his readers. I believe that this is a journey that you can go on, and that the biggest mistake that you can ever make is to occasionally be better, to occasionally work hard. You have to be consistent. If you want to be a solid entrepreneur, you have to be consistent. So tune in, listen to these lessons, learn as much as you can for free, because these tips, they will change you if you let it. So in the following weeks, David, he will continue sharing his journey on how he crowdfunded $1 million from his readers. And remember, if you like our content and you enjoyed this show, do not forget to smash subscribe. And again, until next time, thanks for watching. Keep on closing. Peace. Becoming a successful entrepreneur isn't easy, but it's not impossible. Subscribe to my channel today, and together, let's figure out how to grow.
Bring that ass back like a boom.